Greetings, all Shardvixen here. Okay, I'm really tired. I have the sleepies. I get that periodically. It really is. I'm thinking my fibromyalgia is really pretty food based and mental health based. Um, so I haven't been eating well again. I'm just having a hard time staying on my food plan. I have to write it down and report stuff, and I just get to where I just like go. I got a new. There's a Samsung has a thing to do that for. Anyway, this is not talk about diet. This is know thyself, which is really about me knowing me. I've switched some things around so that the lights are all in the front, except for that big bright thing back there. It's called the sun. It's not the sun in my window though. I had a dream about that once. Sun in my window. Anyway, today is a movie, and the movie is Assassin's Creed. Now, there's a couple of shorts, for animes. There was Lineage, which was about Enzio's dad. There was Ascension, which is about Enzio, and it pulls two of the games together. I think it's Brotherhood and what's the one? There's Brotherhood, Revelations, and 2. So it pulls 2 and Brotherhood together. It tells you, or maybe it's 2. Maybe it's Brotherhood. No, because it's about the one bad guy there, the Cardinal. So it's between that. And then Embers, which is the end part of Enzio's story. So, which is kind of cool because you get the story of there's a short. I can't remember which one it's in, but there's a short in one of the games that shows Enzio being born, and then you have Lineage, Enzio being born, and then Ascension, and then Embers. That all about Enzio. I think by far Enzio still is the most popular Assassin's Creed character. I think I'm not positive about that, but I think so because they did the 3 games about him, so you have more of his story in there. Anyway, so the Assassin's Creed movie, of course, critics hated it. I think if you read the reviews, I think the reason people hated it, though, is that they didn't understand the game. If they had at least played 1 or 2 of the games, they would have had a better understanding of how the story was about. Because like Liberation, I just finished Liberation, and Liberation is a very simplistic Assassin's Creed game, a lot like 2, and there isn't a whole lot of background except to the diary pages of her mother, but there you feel like you're just plopped in it, and then it goes along. You don't get anything about the person who's controlling Aveline, though I think they suggesting that it's you the player who's controlling Aveline, but the way Assassin's Creed goes is you have the person, and I haven't played the later ones, so I don't know for sure, so maybe I'll revisit this concept and I'll have a different viewpoint of it, but as it goes for the games I've played already, the idea is that you, the player, are playing a character who's a modern day assassin who then ends up going backwards and accessing his own genetic memories. Though I do remember that Abstereo pushes it so that anybody can visit anybody else's after Desmond dies. So, it's an interesting timeline for that purpose. But for me, because this is Know Thyself, for me, I like the Assassin's Creed movie. Now, I've watched a lot of movies on video games, and if we're talking about, same thing with comic book movies. So, if you're talking about a movie that anybody could go to, and have no concept of what's going on, I would say Assassin's Creed is not that kind of a movie. You have to have a little bit of understanding about the mechanics of the game. Otherwise, you are going to be so dang lost, and it's very choppy as it is in the games. The games are very choppy in that concept. They don't flow unless you understand the mechanics. Because Assassin's Creed 1, when I first played it, there was a bit of disconnection, like you don't understand, especially since you start in the middle of a memory and then you have to go backwards, and he has to go backwards and learn how to play all over again. So in the movie, now it helps a lot that they had Michael Fassbender in it, because I just think he's an absolute cutie. He's one of my favorite what I call pretty actors to look at. So I really enjoy watching him move and talk, and even when he plays bad guys, he has a presence about him that is really good on screen. Same way as Enzio's voice, the voice actor who did Enzio had a beautiful auditorial concept that you could really get into. The voice really fit the character, or the character fit the voice, and the voice, you just could envision meeting a person like that in real life, and that was the person. Um, I like Assassin's Creed. I think I talked about it before, about if I visit the video game, I'll have to check again. If you look at some of my playlists from the Den, that's what the vlog's called. The vlog series. I like Assassins. I've always been fond of assassins and rogues and the sneaky kind of thing, because being sneaky was easy for me as a kid, and that was the best way to get stuff that you needed. Being forthright and out open doesn't work. Now, sometimes when I play a game, I want to play that way. I want to be right up there in front and just slash, 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 and you're dead, and that's it. I don't play well doing the sneaky stuff. I don't seem to have an innate patience for it, which is odd, because in real life, I do have patience. I've worked with children. I have patience for children and dogs and waiting for things and stuff like that. But I don't seem to have much patience in playing my video games. I'm not sure why. And so if the video game is set up that you have to have some patience to it, then that's important. I have waited for kids who didn't speak, teaching them to speak, teaching them to use a picture card to tell us what's going on inside them. I've waited many, many, many months, worked very hard with them to get them to that point. So patience isn't something I lack in real life. It's just something I lack in pretend world. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it isn't real life. The return is not the same as it would be in real life. I don't know. But so being an assassin is something that I have often had fantasy concepts about. So for me, I have always had problems sleeping, so I'm always afraid. And so one of the things I learned to do as a young child very quickly was to do a meditative, dreamlike fantasy stories. So you make a character, just like playing video games. It's probably why I love video games so much, because that's exactly how I saw it. You create a character, and in the process of creating the character, you embody the character with abilities and traits that you may not possess yourself. I didn't do well with confrontation as a child. I always ended up standing. I did all right. I would be able to tell somebody, no, stop doing that. I don't want you doing that. That's not okay. But I wasn't able to back that with any type of ability that said, if you don't stop that, I'm going to hurt you. Or if you don't stop that, I'm going to get rid of you. Or I'm going to, I didn't have that ability. So the idea of being an assassin and having that kind of power, because to me, assassins can take care of themselves, but they prefer to be in the shadows. I kind of like that. Also, I thought that's a great superhero kind of thing, to be sneaky rather than, like Catwoman and Batman for the most part. Not more newer Batman style, but to be that sneaky kind of person, Black Cat, was very attractive to me as a child and as a young adult, and then later as an older adult. I find that it's a little harder now to do some fantasy characters because I'm older, and I know I'm older, and it's hard to imagine. I don't feel bad about myself, so it's hard to imagine myself in a younger body because I don't have the same thought patterns as I did when I was 20. In some cases, I still have the same emotional problems is when I was, 14, 15, 16, because there was a lot of trauma that occurred that stuck my brain there. But I have had growth in other areas um, that have helped with that. So, but being an assassin seems like the only problem I ever saw about being an assassin is that you had someone else telling you what to do. So in Encio's case, he didn't. Altair did. Altair had somebody that was constantly controlling him until he stood up and took over that controlling part. But then he had nothing but bad luck his whole life. And I kind of think that the writers of Assassin's Creed, and really any writers about people who use violence to try to control or change their world, or not the word I'm trying to think of, be powerful in their world, always end up in the end kind of losing, which is why Encio's story is kind of nice. But in the case of Fassbender's character, and I can't remember his name, I want to say Carl, I think. But in the case of Carl had already lived a life that was horrific, trying to find sense of himself, and then he gets killed. And they always indicate that he was a criminal. But we live in a society now that wants you to look at people as people, not as just their actions. Kind of like, why do they do the things they do? What was the purpose behind it? Is there a reason for this thing? But so then he is killed and reborn, basically, even though he wasn't really killed, but he's reborn, and then they're going to use him because he doesn't exist as a person. That's a common theme. In psychology, that happens a lot to children and adults in abusive relationships. They will abuse you to the point of almost dying, and then make you feel like it's because of them that you exist, and that they have control of you, and that no one cares, and there's no one that's going to help you, and there's no way out of it. And you can't even kill yourself or other things to get out of it, because they are always controlling everything. The fear that they put in you through physical and mental pain is very controlling. And so a lot of people dream, of having that ability to fight back. And assassins are like never being there. They show up, take care of business, and then they leave. Whereas a knight is going to have, and they have different protocols. Even if you don't count the characters in Assassin's Creed, assassins by nature have a whole different way of fighting and looking at life and everything than a knight or a samurai or another warrior. Everything has this thing that's set up to it, So sometimes the idea of a prince and a knight might not be the same as having an assassin come and kill, because assassins are sneaky, and people won't see it coming, and they might not know who that person who sent the assassin. And assassins are the instrument of someone else as well. So I remember working with a young girl who had been severely abused her whole life by her father, uncle, and brother. And her and her mother both. And then her mother was hospitalized. And everyone told people, all the authorities were told, that this young girl was mentally ill and had delusions. So even if she was reporting what was going on, nobody believed her, because it had already been preset that she was having delusions. So when I started working with her, I wasn't working with her for her mental health. I was working with her for behavioral problems in school, to try to make it so that she could function in society better than she was. And I knew about, she would tell me things, and it's not a matter whether things were true or not. It's that she felt they were true, and that she was always afraid. And her and I were talking about assassins one day. The whole class was, and she wanted to hire an assassin because that would be something that would get her out of where she was at. She was in a good place now at the time, but it sometimes being able to go back in your past and kill those people in your past would be great. And Assassin's Creed kind of offers that aspect. Yeah, you're not supposed to, you can't kill civilians, and you're not supposed to kill people that aren't part of the memory, but you could. I mean, we've seen it happen, in the idea of the concept of it. Because you're really just riding along. You don't have any control. You're just riding along in the memory. But I think that for me, the idea of having that power and you wouldn't have to necessarily use it, or you could pick and choose and use it, is very, very intriguing and helpful in a way. The idea of when you are having a bad thing, like somebody upset you so badly, and I always tell people when I'm really, really angry at somebody, I imagine them like the Resident Evil in the first movie where the let's say Red Queen, but I don't know if that's what it's called, um, use is the tunnel to her keyboard where you can control her. They're walking through it, and there's these lights, the lasers, and they chop people up. So I imagine someone being sliced in little squares and then putting them in a blender and pouring them down the drain. That's how I deal with someone who I'm having a confrontation with, who is overwhelming me to the point that I want to hurt them. Now, I would never do that, but that's the thought that comes in my head. Um, I always tell people, when you're that angry, it's okay to think about it. It's when you start planning and doing it that you've crossed the line, and you need to think about that as well. When I was 17, I sat down with somebody and we tried to conceive a plan to have my father killed. The reason behind it was my father had money where he worked, that if you killed him, it would come to me and my brother. And so, because he was divorced by that time from my mother, so we would actually be set up for life, if something was to happen to him. So I was trying to figure out a way to have something happen to him that would look like an accident. And I sat down with some people and said that, I'd pay them if they helped me. But that was as far as it went. I finally decided I didn't want to go to jail for the man. He had already abused me enough, and I didn't need to also be sitting in prison trying to get away from him, because if I got caught, I'd lose everything. And I was already in a point where I didn't have much of nothing, but I still had my freedom to a point. I still had the ability to make better choices than worse choices. So I quit the planning of it, and, every once in a while people would remind me that I had done that, and I was like, yeah, we all think of things that we shouldn't think about. Um, I didn't go as far as how would you get, how would I get rid of him? I got to that point, and then I was like, because he was still my father, even though I hated him. And at that time, I hadn't learned to let go and walk away and understand that family is who you love and trust. Family is not necessarily those in blood. Blood doesn't have anything. I am a firm believer that we are all related. We all share the same genes. We don't have it. There's no other type of genes. No, Homo sapiens are all the same. And so even if there was, and I like to think about it, no one can prove it, even if you look at all the other human that were around in the early part of human development, like, I can't say their name, Nathandrels, the big-headed ones, and then there were other Homo sapiens, different types. When you think about that, even if that mixture's there, we still are all related. Even if you believe in a religious concept. So I believe that we're all related. That some of us are more closer related. But also, if you look at how DNA works, um, even though technically half of my genes and half of their father's genes went into making them, it can be any combination of genes from all the genes that you carry. So not only do they get my genes, but then they get my mother's genes and my father's genes and my grandmother's genes and my great grandmother on both sides, and any of those can pull out to make a baby. Um, and so because of that, is that when we're talking about family, we are all related, all of us, and we're hurting each other in that process. And even if you believe not in evolution, which of course is just a theory, and you believe in creation concepts of, your God's created you, your God, whichever you prefer, created you, and just your sect of people that believe in that God were clear. There were other gods and other things going on as well. And especially in the Christian religion, that says that, they acknowledge that there are other gods and stuff going on. I went on a tangent because I was talking about my father. But the whole story of the assassins and the Templars is very, very interesting as well, because the assassins, of course, are all about making free choice, whereas the chaos and the Templars are all about order. There are quite a few books out there that kind of look at that philosophy and show that order all by itself can be as chaotic as chaos, and chaos all by itself has order within it. It's not understandable order, and we have a hard time with that concept that both carry a little bit of each. I think it's that we don't have words that really look at it more so. So I identify with the assassins because, well, I identify with both in a way, because I identify with the assassins with the idea that life is all about choices and we have the right to choose. Even if we don't think we have the right to choose, there's still a choice there. And not choosing is still a choice as well. But then I understand the Templars with the idea, because that's how my daughter always says if she's going to control the world, it would be from that concept that if we just tell you what to do, everybody will be safe. It'll protect everybody. In the case of the Templars, it's about other people getting the power and having the money and having everything and controlling everybody else. But still, that there's kind of a seductiveness to the idea of making sure we are all in a very rational, set world. So that's why I like Assassin's Creed. I like the movie. I enjoyed it a lot. It's as good. It's better than some other video game movies I've seen that I like. I love Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 2 was a little far-fetched, but was a little harder to get into. But I think it's because I like the music in Mortal Kombat 1, so it was very hard to it was easy to connect to it. And I knew the story also in that. If you don't know the story for the video games, even if they try to take it out of the games like they did in Assassin's Creed, the basis is still there, and you kind of have to understand what's going on with the Templars and what's going on with the Assassins and what's going on with Abstereo and all of that to make sense of the movie. All right, that's it for today. I will catch you all on the flip side. I'm out of here. Peace, 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 peace.